Everyone keeps saying that marketing has changed forever. Traffic is disappearing. AI overviews are replacing clicks. Attribution is dead or messier. But what does that actually mean for teams? For most companies right now, the strategy is here's ChatGPT. Good luck. And that isn't helpful. That's why I was excited to sit down with Sam O, VP of Acquisition at Bitly. In this episode, Sam and I dive into what AI, CRO, growth, and customer journeys actually look like at Bitly and what smart teams are doing right now. Sam actually explains how he uses AI, what he doesn't use AI for, and what all of us can learn from the Bitly team. Let's get started. Hey, Sam.
Hi, Talia.
I'm excited to have you here. To get started, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah. I always describe myself first as a husband and a father. Um, and from there, I serve the acquisition team here at Bitly. So I've been here at Bitly for a little over 3 years, actually coming up on my fourth year. My team is responsible for driving a lot of our free users into both of our products. And so we do that through non-paid channels. We do that through paid channels. And then my team also manages the website. So CRO is very near and dear to my heart because we know how important it is once we get someone to the website to get them to the next step. How do we get them one step into our product? How do we get them closer to value? And my career started in 2005 and I've been lucky enough to always been in performance roles. So always tied to some sort of revenue metric, whether that be direct revenue, pipeline revenue, or, here at Bitly, I'm still tied to revenue. It's just product led revenue and then a little bit of sales assistant revenue.
Cool. Obviously, Bitly is probably one of the more well-known companies out there. I can't tell you how many times I see QR codes and it says Bitly in the corner, or, there's obviously the shortened links. But I don't know if people spend a lot of time thinking about the marketing behind such a huge brand that everyone recognizes. And I'd love to hear from you, who is the actual audience that you serve, and what does acquisition look like for you guys?
Yeah. So the audience is really interesting because we have users and customers in almost like 190 countries, like almost every country in the world. We've really leaned into how we serve those users. And then from like the size of businesses, it's everything from the person running their own business out of their garage to Fortune 500 companies here in the United States. So the audience is really, really broad. A big thing that we've started to lean into more here at Bitly when we think about Bitly and then our other brand QRCG, is how do we start to build like better experiences for those users and even personalization? So adding additional languages, being considerate of, hey, Latin American Spanish is not the same as European Spanish. And how do we start to acknowledge those differences and then really speak to our users? So a big thing that we're changing and we're looking to change here at Bitly is what we're known for. Everybody knows Bitly as this like URL shortener. Everyone I talk to is like, I know Bitly. Y'all are the people who shorten the URLs. But what we've realized is that we're also this tool that helps you close data gaps. And by adding QR codes, by having short links, like these channels that have traditionally been difficult to measure, we can sort of close that data gap for people. And so a lot of the enhancements we've made, we've really recently released an AI assistant that also gives you insights on what's going on. Like what's the link that's performing the best? What day of week maybe you should try this again? And then we're also sitting on a lot of data ourselves that we can use for benchmarking and to give people an idea of like, hey, what are you trying to accomplish? And maybe we can give you some advice on how to do it better.
I love that. I actually think that is one of the best hidden secrets about Bitly that shouldn't be hidden, is that because we're in a zero-click world where most platforms are keeping the clicks to themselves and trying to keep you there, Bitly actually gives me specifically so much information that I just can't find in GA4. I can't find it in any dashboard that my clients have built. Even when I'm just presenting on stage, I always have a QR code in there, and I have noticed all this data coming in. I'm like, people went here and then they click there. And it's just so interesting to see data that it's just really hard to track in any other way, I guess. So I'm really appreciative of of those analytics, I would say.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It's a big focus of what we're building and how we're trying to change what Bitly is.
I guess my question is, I'm always about the audience. That's kind of my forte. How do you serve customers when they're so different? As you said, like it's Fortune 500 companies, but then you've also got like the solopreneurs and the business owners. Does marketing change for them?
A little bit, but what we really focus on is the jobs to be done. So what is the job that the user is trying to get done? And, to simplify things down, the job that really people are trying to do is to show value in the effort that they're in whatever they're doing, right? So I'm running a SMS campaign, and if I can't say what's going on, it doesn't matter how much I'm running on this campaign if I can't say what the impact of that campaign is. And so this is where we've started to lean into like the job that everyone's trying to do is they want to show value. They want to show, here's the effort that I'm putting into it, and this is the outcome that I'm driving. And that overall messaging lives throughout. And then it's about like, how do we start to personalize the stories for, maybe a different industry? But what's really interesting and what we're finding and talking to our customers is, and you talk to any marketer right now, and they're all trying to do the same thing, which is, how do I prove out the value of what I'm doing? The world is changing. There's LLMs. Google has gone 100% into AI search, and that has dramatically affected how all of our channels operate. And so, we're all kind of doing the same thing. We're all sitting in the same boat together, which is like, we're all trying to figure out, okay, what are the things that are working and driving the right outcome? And then how do I do more of that?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that leads directly into my next question is what's changed in how you approach growth and marketing, since 2 years ago or even 6 months ago, because everything keeps changing. How are you seeing things at Bitly right now?
So we've definitely seen the change. I mean, like, I would love to say we've been able to fend it off, but we've definitely seen the change. And there's a lot of chatter out there. You're going to hear people are saying like, yeah, there's a chunk of the internet traffic that just disappeared. Um, and as we start to figure this out, we understand what's happening. Like Google is taking a lot of the informational queries. They're taking a lot of even some of the comparison queries, and they're now placing the website with an AI overview. So now people are getting their information just in a different way. And something that I've had to like come to like realize in myself is that my job hasn't really changed. It has per se, but not so much. Like I'm still trying to do the right thing. I'm still trying to make sure that people who are looking for a solution see Bitly as one of the options, but also show them in whatever forum they're in to get the right information about like what is the value that Bitly brings to their worlds. It's just now I have a new place that I need to go think about that. So before it might have been like, oh, you know what? We're in paid search, we're in organic search. We have the right pages that are ranking for the right keywords, and we know people can get that information. But now it's like the job hasn't changed. We still need to give them the information. It's just now there's a new place where this happens. And that could be inside of ChatGPT, that can be inside of Claude, Perplexity, or it could just be within the AI overview inside of search. And so our jobs are the same. It's just now there's this giant piece of disruption that we have to now adjust to and go, okay, well, how do we get this thing to be able to reflect the value and see us as a tool to solve this job? And so for me, it was a little bit of a like panic moment in the summer of last year when all this was happening of like, oh my gosh, like all my knowledge is just like worthless. And then like pausing and realizing, wait, it's still valuable. I just have to rethink the way I think about this. And there's now this new place that people go to. And it's interesting because it's like, it's the same thing that happened with the internet, like people found a new place to go to get all their information. And now they have this other new place. And it's about how fast we can adapt to that and how fast we can adjust even our strategy to fit within how that works. And so that's a lot of what we've been focusing on for probably the last 9 months or so as we started to see this is where are the places we now need to show up and how do we test it? How do we make sure it's effective? We've invested in a lot of new tools as we think about like, how do we continually adjust to where our users are going to go get their information?
Love that. I think that's probably for me one of the biggest shifts that I've seen over the past, I want to say 24 months, maybe a bit less, but in the past you could separate. There was search, there was CRO, there was paid, and each one lived in its own bubble, and you could drive traffic or you could run A/B tests and you controlled the assets that you own. And that was great. But
Hmm.
now everything's kind of merged, right? And you have to like search and zero are inseparable, and paid and zero are inseparable. Everything kind of works together. And what your brand is saying on social matters to your conversions even more than ever. You and I worked together for a while at Bitly for conversion optimization.
Yeah.
And when we were working together, we did a lot of A/B testing around like just ramping up the whole program. And I'd love to hear where you guys are right now. What does a zero program look like right now at Bitly?
Yeah. In my opinion, the CRO program has actually gotten more value, especially with the changes that we're seeing. We have to do more work now to earn the traffic. So we know there's this new place that people go to, but at the end of the day, like the buying motion is still going through the website. So
Yeah.
that has not changed yet. It may one day in the future, but for right now, people are still going to bit.ly.com. They're still going to qrcodegenerator.com. And that's where they make their purchase. And so CRO has almost become like this, okay, where are people going? This is making the homepage even more important because what we know happens is people do their search, they gather their information, and whether they're doing it through AI, they go to Reddit, they're doing it still within search. The place that they're most likely landing is our homepage. So our homepage has always been a conversion driver, but now it's even a more important conversion driver. And we haven't implemented these things yet because we're still trying to figure out the right way to do this. But we're even thinking of like, how do we change the experience based on where the person is coming from? So if we know that they're coming from ChatGPT, do we need to change the experience that we show to them? Because like we need to, whether it's like maybe we need to show them plan information up front because this user has already made a decision that they want to use Bitly. And what we need to do is make it easier for them to get into the right plan. We also have users that are like earlier in their journey. And so like those users get what we call the free hook, which is our main widget on our homepage where people can create a short link or QR code and then get into our product. But do we need to change the way that operates based on where they're coming from, trying to get an understanding of like where they might be in their buyer journey? We
Yeah.
know users coming from LLM have a higher tendency to subscribe, become a new user, and then we see the same behavior to subscription. So those users are showing a higher intent coming in and how can we pick up on that signal? And then through CRO, through personalization, give them a unique experience that might be different than someone who's just coming direct. And those are the conversations that we're starting to have. We've already started to personalize based on language. People can change the language on the website, but now we're trying to think of like, what are the other signals that we need to be picking up on? How do we leverage CRO to be the place that we test so we can have a measurable impact? And then that starts to build out like almost this CRO, but like web personalization experience
Yeah.
as we think about like meeting our customers where they are and knowing that like people coming from an LLM might be further along in their journey than maybe someone coming from organic search.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's very similar to what we've always done, which is trying to figure out their stage of awareness. Where are they? Are they ready to buy or not? Now they're getting their content beforehand. And one of the things that we're seeing is the middle of the funnel is kind of underserved. So there's a lot of everything that we need for like conversion is on the website. But then anything where people are asking questions, like real questions, like, will this work for me? Should I try this or that? Is this a risk? That content usually is kind of missing for most brands. It's really interesting to see how that develops when now you're kind of assigning it to channels, but it's not really the channels that are the people are coming from. It's more their queries and what they care about.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what's been interesting about that is like something that we've done and where we're putting focus is like those specific questions of like, can I do this? How can I do this? That's where like our team has really even leaned into our help documentation and our dev documentation that has all of our API documentation in it, because like that's where we know some of these bots are going to get that information.
Yeah.
So it's not just what other people are saying, but it's also like, do we have the proper amount of information publicly that allows
Yeah.
these bots to understand the capability of our products and then help to inform those questions? It's, to your point, it is everything. We are looking
Yeah.
at like how do we show up in these different places and how do we even show up externally on third party sites? And then from there, it's really about like, hey, if we're showing up the right way, we should know and we should start to see higher intent users coming through direct channels, coming through branded search. And then really where CRO starts to kick in is like, okay, but how do we make this a little bit easier? How do we reduce friction? How do we get people down the
Yeah.
right path as fast as possible? Because we know they're coming in with more intent.
Yeah. And what's cool, well, kind of, is that it makes every single page a conversion page. Because
Yes.
if now every page on your website matters and is being pulled into AI mode or AI overview or into a Reddit thread, then every single page has to have the most important information for users. And every one of them needs to convert that person. So the conversion might not happen on that page, but every single page matters. And I think that's really, for me, I find that really exciting because I think for a very long time, brands didn't really care about those pages. It was more about like the landing page and the home page and where do
Yep.
I convert people? But now all this information is being surfaced and it has to be helpful for users to actually, yeah, to actually do the work.
Yeah, and I think tell you that's a really important point is like at the end of the day, we're all doing this for people. And so like whatever we put on our pages, whatever content we're producing has to be helpful for the person. Right. Like as much as we want to like optimize things for SEO, as much as we want to optimize things for LLMs, it still has to matter to the person. It still has to be important to the person. And so that's a really important thing. Even as we look at like our own tools and adopting agentic tools, is like at the end of the day, we're still doing this for people.
Yeah.
So whatever we're producing, the content we're creating, we still have like a people first mentality with that. Like we would never just create a bunch of like content for the sake of creating content that actually doesn't add a lot of value.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, most people think now or feel that this adds more to their plate because there's just so much more to take into consideration. So, how are you prioritizing what to test, what to launch, what to focus on? What is kind of the method or the process that you go through to decide what is noise that everyone's talking about and like we have, or and what is the things that actually matter that we need to prioritize and optimize?
Yeah. So especially now with like all the things changing with AI search, what Google's doing, Google released this press release that says like these are the best practices. And it was basically like SEO practices.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, that's strange. We know that's not all true.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that we are doing and the way we are prioritizing is like we still know there is we have the benefit here at Bitly that we have a massive audience. We know that there are millions and millions of people coming to our website every single day or every single month. And that volume allows us to continually experiment and try new things. And we can do that and still reach significance pretty quickly. So
Yeah.
one thing that we'll always do is we're always going to look at like where are users coming to us today, and then when it comes to like experimenting with what to do out there in the market, a lot of it is just well, we'll work with the AI and we'll act dumb and we'll be like, whoa, why did you recommend that? Like, where are you going to look for this information and how are you gathering this? And you as you start to have the conversation with the agent, you start to understand, oh, you're going to this site and this site has never been on my radar. And you're like, how many of these sites exist out there? And there's a bunch of like small sites and you're like, oh wow. Okay. So how do we start to do this in a way that we can experiment, see how it changes the response? What's challenging right now is that the tools that we have at our disposal are probably the worst they're ever going to be.
Yeah.
And so this is all new. Everyone's trying to adjust to how do you do this reporting? But like this, especially this new thing with AI overviews, even the LLMs, they all have this concept of memory. So the answer it's going to give me is very different than the answer it may give you because it's got this source of memory, all the conversations you've had, what your interests are, what your preferences are, and it's going to try to match the response to that. That is a new nuance that we've really never had to deal with before.
Yeah.
And our tools kind of give us a snapshot moment in time, right?
Yeah.
And like but that's the best we have right now. So part of it is we have to go through and we have to listen to our tools. What are our tools saying? Are they saying we should do these things? Are they returning like, yeah, your brand sentiment is positive. Here's your prompt answer. And do you like what it's saying? But then there's also this component of like we go check ourselves. My director of SEO does a daily check and he checks to see like, okay, what are you saying when I ask you this question? Tomorrow, are you saying something different to me? And then back and looking at like, okay, but what are all the things we tried? What did we change? Did we show up in a new place that we didn't expect? And so, the hard part right now is that we don't have the tool set just doesn't exist. There are companies that are trying to do it, but just like everything else, we're at the start of this, not the middle. Right. And at the start of anything, you have like the worst of the worst. And then eventually the tools will figure it out. Technology will catch up and you'll start to get like better data, better reporting. For right now, what we are doing is we're continuing to follow the volume. So we know which prompts have the most volume. We monitor those prompts. And then we make sure we show up in the right way. If we don't like the way we're showing up, we then try things. We test content. We try to make a change even in our like help documentation. We're leaning into YouTube now because it's like we know Google cites YouTube constantly. As we do these things, we've been manually monitoring and we've also been using our tools to monitor. And then what we're looking for are what are those changes? And what's hard about it is like the world of direct attribution is going to get much, much harder. And so now what we're doing is we're doing a lot more correlation. Here are the things that we did. Here is the outcome that we're seeing. And if we were to stop any of those things, do we continue to see that same trend or did something change? And that kind of gives us an idea of like, oh, we stopped this, but maybe we should bring it back again because we saw a change over here.
Yeah.
That's a lot of what we're doing. And so that's like the science with like the art of what's going on right now.
Yeah. I really appreciate this because it stops brands from reporting on traffic and makes them focus on what really matters. One of the things that I'm constantly telling our clients to do is to Google themselves and I don't know, Bing themselves, but also ChatGPT themselves without going to the website. Meaning, if you put in the brand name or your competitor's name or your industry's name and just write Reddit or YouTube review or is brand worth it? Just to see what would people find out about you if they never visited your website? Like, what is the narrative even online and where are you showing up? And when you do show up, what is actually showing up? Those are the things you might need to update, or maybe you need to start creating your own subreddit, start responding to people in there. You have to actually engage in there. So I think that for me, that is the exciting part, I guess, of this world.
Well, and what's great about it is like, it truly is like an experiment. Like we are all experimenting right now with like, what is the best way to do this? Like if we create a bunch of YouTube content, do we see it move the needle? Do we see it change the perception? And so this is where I really appreciate like the experimental nature of my team where they are willing to go try.
Yeah.
And I really the experimental nature of Bitly to go like, yeah, you can go try. And if it doesn't work out, what did you learn?
Yeah.
Perfect. How do we apply that in the future? And then let's go on to the next thing. And so, some of this is our rate of experimentation has to increase. We have to figure out how to try to do more things and let go of perfection because we don't know what's going to be the big lever. And that is, that's always been my mentality, but I think this is almost going to force it for everybody, which is like, we don't know. There are no best practices. There are people trying to build them right now, but they change with every model release. So perfection can't be the target. It needs to be progress. And how do you continually progress forward? And then a new model might come out and you might go, oh, shoot, I just went 2 steps back, then like progress again. And I know it's going to be like SEO in the early days where the best practices were to like keyword stuff and hide words behind white copy. But it's the same thing. It's like we're all trying to figure this out. There are probably ways to game it, but those ways to game it are probably going to be removed soon. But as long as you start with your user, your customer, who are you serving? What problem are you solving? I don't think that has changed. And I don't think that has changed ever. So as much as this is changing like everyone's metrics probably and what we're all seeing at the very top of the funnel, especially with traffic, it's still not changing our jobs. And this is like the thing that I keep running in the back of my head is like my job still hasn't changed. My job is still to educate, provide the right information and show the value of my products.
Agreed. That's what our team at Get Uplift loved, why we loved working with you guys, because you understood the essence of what marketing is really about, which is about the people. What is your main metrics then? What are the things that you measure yourself against? Because again, at the end of the day, we're doing so much and we're paying attention to so many things. How do you decide what are your main metrics that you are measuring right now that can be
Yeah.
measured?
Um, I always appreciate this about my roles, but because my roles have been performative, our role at Bitly and QR Code Generator for our two brands is to drive new users that convert to paid at the highest rate possible. And so like that keeps my team focused also on quality. Like we don't want to drive any user. We really want to go out and try to find those new users that have a need that justifies a reason to like pay for a service like Bitly or a service like QRCG. So the nice thing about my role, it is also stressful because like everyone can see my numbers and so they know what I'm doing. But at the same point in time, it does give me a lot of clarity in that like it simplifies my world. My role and the key metric that I'm looking at is how am I driving paid subscribers? One of the leading metrics into that is our free signups or free trials. But it's really at the end of the day, all decisions are going to be around, are we driving paid subscribers? And even looking more long term is like, are we driving paid subscribers that are staying paid? Right. And like, it's not just about like getting them to commit to a monthly plan. It's like, no, if they're on the monthly plan, I at least want them to stay a year or 2 years or, and so it's easy for an acquisition team to say like, oh, we did our job. We drove the paid subscriber. But at the same point in time, we also have some influence on, yeah, we might be driving a lot of paid subscribers, but are we driving the wrong kind of paid subscribers that may have a short-term need? And how can we adjust our campaigns to look for those that have a longer-term need?
Yeah, I like that. So, how are you specifically using AI, Sam? Because there is so much frustration amongst us marketers with the call to use AI. But I need you to tell me the truth. Do you find AI actually helpful in your day-to-day work? Are you asked to use AI? And where are you finding, if you are, any value?
Yeah. So organizationally, we have agreed to adopt AI. And we are starting to put more of a framework around what that means and like what we expect to see organizationally when it comes to AI. Our goal is to eventually get to a point where we have like centralized tools that anybody has access to that can do certain jobs for us. So example of that might be like a voice of customer. So like, is there an agent that we can interact with that would give us an idea of the voice of the customer so that like for my team, I could apply that back to our messaging. But for like a product marketing team, it might help them refine the overall messaging. So we have a goal of like where we want to be a year from now. And so it's actually really nice that we have this framing now because it's so hard when you just hear like adopt AI and you're like, I don't know what that means. Like I use AI to take notes in meetings and it's like, yeah, but that's like that's the minimum. So how do we get to this new threshold or new level? So one, yes, the organization has adopted AI. I tell everybody that I solve marketing problems with technology and data. So when AI first started coming out, I was like, well, I want to play with this thing. I want to know what it does. And so I started using it in my home life and then also my most recently work life. For the past year, Bitly has been really good about giving everybody access. So we have ChatGPT, we have Claude. We've gone through all the security and the conversations around like, okay, can we put data in it? How can it help us do these things? So we're starting this journey, we're going through it, and we continue to go through it. And a couple of things I will say is like, when people think AI, sometimes I think they think only the models. So it's
Yeah.
only Chat GPT. But there are so many products out there that are built upon AI. And so we have started to adopt those as well. So we've now started to build our content with a product called AirOps, which is an AI, they call it agents now. I think Quill is the new product name. But we give it all the context. And what we've made sure we've done is there is always a human component as part of our content build. There will never be content that is 100% AI because we always want to make sure, like, does it solve the human problem? That's always like the first check. And we don't want to just push out content for the sake of content. We want to make sure the value is still there. So there's this side of it where you have like these AI first tools. Like I know Notion is one that's really popular, like Granola for note taking, Fathom. There's like all these different solutions. And I do think like that adoption is a little bit easier because it's really easy to go, this is the job of this thing. This is the thing it does. Go do it. Where it's harder and where I've personally had times where I've wanted to throw my keyboard out a window is when you are building something for yourself. And so I've built a couple of workflows for myself using Claude. One is we are a global company. Keeping track of 191 country trends is impossible. Or I guess there's 190 plus countries now, but it's impossible to keep an eye on all those trends. So what I've built is I have an agent that I feed our monthly sign up data by country. It does an analysis. It pulls data down from Google Search Console to give me an idea of what's going on with Google Search. I could try to connect it to a few other data sources, but what I'm finding is like the effort to get there is a lot. And so I need to
Yeah.
figure out an easier way to connect these sources together. But generally, what this does is it does a monthly analysis for me and it builds a report of our top 10 countries by sign up volume. And it just kind of gives me a quick run through of like, these are the trends you should be aware of. These are either like new policies that might have released that might be affecting our business or like trends within the country of things I should be aware of. And really what it does is it just gives me a starting place. And so like that is what's really valuable is it gives me a starting place to go like, okay, I can't even look at 10 countries, but if you can give me a starting place, I can at least
Yeah.
go in and go, okay, how important are these changes? The other thing that I've done is I built a really small chief of staff. So my chief of staff looks at my calendar, email, Slack, and has access to my Google Drive. Part of what I did is I also had it create files for the people that I work most closely with. So I have a file for Tara, who's our CMO and my manager. And what it does is it will scour all my inbox, my Slacks, my calendar, and it'll help me understand like, hey, these are probably the big priorities of your day. Oh, by the way, there was this Slack from Tara. You haven't responded yet. Please make sure you go back and respond. And if I asked it to, it would also help me in my response because it's learning from all my chats with Tara about what she's looking for. And so a lot of this, what it does is it just gets me off step zero. And usually that's where I get like stuck, which is like, oh, I'm sitting here. What do I do?
Yeah.
And now I start my day and I go, good morning, Claude, start my day. And it goes, here are the things that you told me were priorities yesterday. Where do you want to start?
That is so
Or do
cool.
you want to put like a little block on your calendar? You have an opening right here, and I can put a block on your calendar that's a working block to work on this priority. So it's really simple to set up. I stole it from a website it's the couch to 5K, but for AI. It's a really easy thing. It took me about an hour to set up. But what it does is just the start of every day, it unlocks me. At the end of every day, I talk to my Claude and I give it a rundown and it's just my verbal, this is everything
Yeah.
top of mind. This is what I got done. And it just checks things off my list. But all it's doing is it's getting me off of step zero so that every morning I don't wake up and I'm like, okay, what do I need to do today? And instead I go, I see what I need to do today and I can get started.
Absolutely love that because that's where most people get stuck. That's where I get stuck. I'm just like, there's so many things I need to do. And then you end up just staring and just trying to start everything at the same time or doing nothing. So that
Yep.
is super cool. That's wonderful. And
Yeah.
I also like the fact that it helps you get your day started and start doing stuff, and it's not doing the thing for you. I'm not against AI doing the thing for you when it has a very specific dedicated task that does not include outsourcing all your thinking and brain to it, and you turn up and you have no idea what is out there. As you said, like no content will be 100% written by AI because you don't know what it's writing, but having it help you organize yourself, your work, your team, everything that you're doing and get you out of step zero. I love that. That is so cool.
Yeah. But I will say, like, people talk about productivity, things like that. What was hard for me in going through this and building these workflows, adopting the technology was in the very beginning, I felt highly unproductive. I did
Yeah.
feel like this is a giant waste of time. I've now spent multiple hours. The analysis on the country by country, I spent probably if I were to add up all my time, I'd probably spend a week of time. Claude, why did you make this assumption? Hey, Claude, this is weird. This was a year ago and you're saying it's happening now. Like, and writing all those rules with
Yeah.
Claude. And what I would tell everybody and the advice I give everybody is like, treat Claude, I know as weird as it sounds, like a human. You have an insanely talented person who has no idea what they're doing. And so in the beginning, there is a high level of management where you are teaching it, this is what I want you to do. Oh, by the way, you did this in the way that I don't want you to do it. Oh, this is a weird thing that you did. Why did you do this? And then you can sort of write these rules into these workflows that help it understand like what you're looking for, what are the gotchas to keep an eye out for. And what was interesting is like going through that experience, I'm like, oh, I now know what I need to do on my next one. And so like in the beginning, I felt insanely unproductive. And I was like, I feel terrible personally investing this much time into this thing
Yeah.
because I could be doing something productive. But I think it's the same problem that a lot of leaders have with delegation, where it's like, oh, I could teach someone how to do this, but I can also do it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like, but no, you have to learn how to delegate. So like, I do think a big piece of this is we all have to sit down with our, what do we do every single day? What do we want to delegate? Like, are we really tying what we're using our brains for to the value that it creates? And if we're doing something that's like, but this has always been my job, but it doesn't provide any value, that might be a perfect thing to delegate to AI. But you do have to go through the pain of like, this feels like a massive waste of time
Yeah.
as you're trying to get whatever tool of your choice to perform the action that you want and to do it reliably. And so that's where it's kind of like a human, where you do have to check in with it every once in a while and be like, hey, you did a weird thing. Why did you do that? But this is the value that I think the humans will always provide, which is like we have the context to be able to catch those things. And so like as much as you can ask an AI to catch it itself, it's going to miss sometimes. But we as humans have that context to be able to go, oh, that was a weird thing. Why did you do that? And then kind of like have that conversation as you would with like an employee or someone that you work with to help like manage them. So there is that component of it. And in the beginning, it's going to feel like a massive waste of time. But at the end of the day, like you're learning how to work with it. And then the better you can work with it, like the better you can start to figure out like what are the things that maybe I do on a daily basis that don't drive value that I could delegate to this. And then that lets me focus on like what are the bigger things that I need to be putting my actual brain power to
Yeah.
that are going to be the things that move the lever here at Bitly.
Sam, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and talking to us about what you're doing at Bitly, how you're using AI. Tell us where we can follow you and connect with you and ask you questions.
Yeah, of course. I wish I was more active. It is something that I will try to work on, but definitely LinkedIn. There are multiple Samos, but I'm the only one at Bitly. So please feel free to connect with me. I am always open to having a conversation and even thinking about like swapping stories. Like, what are you testing? What am I testing? What are you seeing? What's working? What am I seeing that's working? Because a lot of this is we are all in the same boat right now. We know as much as we know, and there's probably a lot more in the universe that we don't know right now. And who knows what Google is doing and what they're planning. And even with Google I/O being today and tomorrow, who knows what extra things they're planning on doing that they're not telling us about. Um, but at the end of the day, we're all a community. And so definitely like the more we can connect as a community, share stories of what's working, what's not. Also just to commiserate, like it's a frustrating period right now where it's like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. And my tools tell me nothing. And they actually tell me fake stories sometimes. And
Yeah.
it's a frustrating place to be at the moment.
I think that's also what's cool is that in some weird way, it's also bringing a lot of us together, creating communities, communicating more, and creating a safe space for everyone to say, I have no idea what I'm doing. Someone
Right.
help.
Yeah. I mean, definitely like my first foray into Claude Code, I was just like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
just like, is it okay? I keep saying yes. And so luckily I was working with somebody who was my buddy who was helping me through it. But I was like, I just keep saying yes. And he's like, yeah, just keep going. And I'm like, are you sure?
This is fine.
I was like, okay. Of
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you.
course. Thank you for having me, Talia.